Hello Internet, it is me, the E-Man, and you're not going to believe what I just bought on the internet. I got some official Gamer Girl toenails. These things are banned in like 6 different countries, so you know that they're going to be good. Crunchy. Salty. I can feel the power coursing through me. If only there was a video game controller peripheral that would let me properly express this newfound gaming power. Wow! Thanks, God! You know, this thing was actually surprisingly difficult for me to get. I pre-ordered one from EB Games to guarantee getting it on launch day so I could make a review as fast as possible. And I made a joke to the cashier that they'd probably only get 2 and that I would want one. And sure enough, they only got 2, and I didn't get it on launch day. I came on the 23rd with my receipt, and they said that they didn't have any in stock, the warehouse was doing inventory or something, come back tomorrow. So I did, I came back tomorrow, and they started to give me the same spiel again, and then one guy was very nice, and he went into the back for me and he looked, and sure enough they had 2 stowed away hidden behind something, uninventoried and unstickered. So he brought one out and he printed a sticker and he sold it to me, so I was able to get it. But I did waste 2 lunch hours trying to get this damn thing. But hey, while I was there I did buy a PUBG frying pan on sale. So that's kinda cool, I guess. Anyway, let's take a look at what's in the box. Upon opening the box, the first thing you see is a read first card which tells you how to connect the device to the controller. There's actually a much more detailed description in the full manual, which is what I ended up using. Then you've got the add-on itself, which is all wrapped up and fairly snugly enclosed in the box. Overall, very protective packaging. The only other thing in the box is the user's manual, which you will absolutely need to read if you want to properly use all of the add-on's features. So here's the add-on itself. The 2 buttons feel okay, a little bit clicky, maybe not quite as high quality as the rest of the controller, but pretty good, they don't feel bad. The add-on connects to the controller through the auxiliary port and the headphone jack on the bottom of the controller. And this whole thing on the add-on is attached to a kind of spring mechanism that folds down, so that you kind of wrap the add-on around from the back of the controller up and plug it into the port on the bottom of the controller. This whole thing felt very fragile, and I had a really hard time getting it on. It took me several attempts. I had to read the manual on how to do it and look at the pictograms. And once it was on, it did not feel like it was going to come off easily. The add-on does attach quite tightly to the controller, so you won't be able to get it on over any kind of rubber skin, if you're into that kind of thing, I guess. You tap the screen to turn on the display, and then double tap to switch between your 3 available presets. Pressing and holding the screen enables customization, where you click your desired button to scroll through your available options. Each of the back buttons can be set to any of the face buttons except for share and, not surprisingly, the touchpad. Intriguingly, you can also set a button to do nothing, so of course the first thing I immediately tried was setting both buttons to nothing just to see what would happen. And interestingly, it just removes that preset from the list, so if you only wanted 2, that's how you would do it. In order to get it back, you have to reset the device by holding down all 3 buttons for 5 seconds. You also get a headphone jack pass-through on the bottom of the add-on, so you can still use your high-quality PlayStation-branded headphone. Now, how do the back buttons feel to actually use? Well, personally, I like it. I find it quite comfortable. It doesn't really add any significant weight to the controller overall. The PS4 controller is already a decently heavy enough controller, so you're not really going to notice any additional weight. The only real difference is how you grip the controller. You'll no longer be able to obviously have all 3 fingers tightly gripped around the handle. You'll have to have your middle finger raised up ready to push the button. I don't find that uncomfortable, but I guess I'm used to playing with an Elite Xbox One controller. The buttons are large and their placement is quite natural, so you don't really have to think about what you're pressing. You can just do it. That's one nice thing. Sometimes with the Xbox One controller, because the back buttons are so small and there's 4 of them, you kind of have to take that microsecond to think about what you're pressing. It's not really a problem, but it's not here at all with this one. Of course, the limitation is you only get 2 instead of 4, but I think in most cases 2 is really all you're going to need. Most of the time, I don't even have 4 on the back of my Xbox One controller. Playability is about what you'd expect if you've ever used a controller with back buttons. When you think of controller back buttons, the first use you generally jump to is first-person shooters. It's always handy to have jump and sprint set to back buttons. This way you can jump without having to move your thumb from something more important like an analog stick, and it's always easier to sprint by pressing a button than clicking down on L3. Also, man, I'd forgotten how much I dislike Killzone Shadowfall. Of course, the back buttons work with any game. The only real limit is your imagination. They even work with old PS2 ports. I actually quite like having the back buttons for Star Wars Bounty Hunter. Being able to more easily jump and shoot at the same time is a real advantage, and I find having select the scanner ability set to a back button is a really nice quick draw. So in the end, what do I think about the back buttons add-on? Well, personally, I really like it. I find it useful, I find it handy, it's comfortable, I'm glad that I have it, and I think this is probably the way I'm going to play my PS4 from now on. If only partially because I'm afraid of yanking it off and breaking that spring mechanism. Now, do I think that it's worth $40 Canadian? That's a difficult question. My first instinct is to say, no, absolutely not. I would have much rather paid $30 for it. And I know that one of the big reasons why it's so expensive is because it has that LCD screen in it. At first, I kind of brushed it off. I was like, it's just a gimmick, you know, it's flashy, it's fancy. You could do the exact same stuff just in a start screen menu. And that's true, but being able to change my button combo on the fly in the middle of a game without having to go into a start screen menu like the Xbox One controller is actually really handy. The customization ability is way more user-friendly than an Xbox One Elite controller. And I gotta say, I personally prefer the double tapping of the screen on the back rather than the actual physical switch on the front of the controller. And even though you only get 2 buttons instead of 4, you do get 3 presets instead of 2, which I find overall more helpful because generally I only use 2 of the 4 buttons anyway. Now, of course, this is not a fair direct comparison to an Elite controller. This is only about $120 put together, and an Elite controller is more like $160. Overall, it's a more premium item, I understand that. You also have more custom settings with individual presets for different games and stuff through software. That's obviously not here. What I think this is a good alternative for is, instead of buying a really expensive premium third-party PS4 controller with all kinds of extra options, just popping this on a regular controller, it gets the job done. I'd say that that's a good alternative. So bottom line, is it worth it to buy the back buttons for the PS4 controller? Well, as a product, I really want to recommend it. I enjoy using it, I find it handy, it's well made, it's just $40 Canadian is a little bit steep for what you get in my opinion. $30 would have been a no-brainer, absolute buy, but $40, it's kind of a judgment call. Under normal circumstances, I would have never bought this for myself on launch day if I wasn't doing a review. But on the other hand, I'm really happy with it. I'm glad I have it, and I'm probably going to be using it every time I play my PS4 from now on. Overall, I hope this review was at least somewhat helpful to you. If you watched the whole video, thank you very much for doing so. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again on whatever I make next real soon. Goodbye! That's not good.